Hi, welcome to today's On This Day in Tudor History. I'm Claire Ridgway, I'm sure you know that by now. I'm the author of that book just there, On This Day in Tudor History, which has served as the inspiration for these daily videos. On this day in Tudor history, the 7th of April 1538, Elizabeth Boleyn, that's her married name, she was Elizabeth Howard before she got married, Countess of Wiltshire and Ormond, was laid to rest at St Mary's Church in Lambeth. Elizabeth had died 4 days earlier, on the 3rd of April 1538, at the home of Hugh Farringdon, who was the Abbot of Reading, and his home was Baynard's Castle in London. Now, Elizabeth was about 62 years of age when she died, and her death came, of course, just less than 2 years after the executions of her daughter and son, Queen Anne Boleyn and George Boleyn, Lord Rochford. Thomas Worley recorded her death in a letter to Lady Lisle dated the 7th of April 1538. He wrote, "My Lady of Wiltshire died on Wednesday last beside Baynard's Castle." Elizabeth's cause of death is unknown, it just says that she died. But in April 1536, so just before her children were executed, she was described by Thomas Worley as sore diseased with the cough, which grieves her sore. Now, perhaps this was just a cough. Perhaps she'd just got a heavy cold and slight chest infection. But perhaps also it was the start of a more serious illness. We just don't know. In another letter to Lady Lisle, John Hussey recorded Elizabeth Boleyn's funeral procession on the 7th of April 1538. "My Lady Wiltshire was buried at Lambeth on the 7th. My Lord Controller was chief mourner of the men, and Lady Daubeny of the women. She was conveyed from a house beside Baynard's Castle by barge to Lambeth, with torches burning, and 4 bannies, which is thought to be banners, set out of all quarters of the barge, which was covered with black and a white cross. At her burial was the King of Heralds, a herald and a pursuivant." Now, the Lord Controller and Lady Daubeny that are mentioned in that letter, who were acting as chief mourners, were Sir John Russell and Lady Daubeny Catherine Howard, who was Elizabeth Boleyn's half-sister, not to be confused with Queen Catherine Howard, Henry VIII's fifth wife. Now, Elizabeth Boleyn was laid to rest in a crypt underneath the Howard Chapel of St Mary's Church in Lambeth, this church being right next to Lambeth Palace, which was, of course, the property of the Archbishop of Canterbury. A ledger stone was recorded as being inscribed with the words, "Here lieth the Lady Elizabeth Howard, sometime Countess of Wiltshire." Now, this ledger stone was thought to have been lost during restoration work and renovation work done on the church after it was saved from demolition in the 1970s by the Garden Museum that now use it. It's not a church anymore. It may look like a church, but it's a garden museum. So it was saved by the Garden Museum. It wouldn't exist today if they hadn't stepped in. But this ledger stone has since been uncovered during recent, I think they started refurbishment work in 2015. And during this work, this ledger stone has been uncovered once again, and it can now be seen. If you visit the Garden Museum, you can find Elizabeth Boleyn's ledger stone on the floor of the gift shop of the museum. I'll give you a link to Natalie Grinninger's article on the discovery of this ledger stone so that you can see photos of it, because she's shared photos of the stone. I'm also going to leave you with a few photos that I took when I visited Lambeth in May 2013, which show Lambeth Palace, because that was right next door to St Mary's, and which also show the exterior and interior of the Garden Museum, formerly St Mary's Church, where Elizabeth is buried. Unfortunately, they hadn't done this recent refurbishment work when I went, so I didn't get to see this ledger stone of Elizabeth Boleyn, so I haven't got photos of that. I'll also give you a link to the video that I did on Thomas and Elizabeth Boleyn so that you can find out more about Elizabeth Boleyn and who she was, and also obviously about Thomas, Anne Boleyn's father, so you can find out more about them in that video. So that was today's On This Day in Tudor History event, the 7th of April 1538. Elizabeth Boleyn was laid to rest at St Mary's Church in Lambeth. Of course, I'll be back tomorrow. You can subscribe to this channel by just clicking down there. You can hit the bell to be notified of new videos, but of course there'll be new ones going live every day this year as I bring you lots and lots of Tudor history events. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate you following my videos and my work. Have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye bye.